Welcome to the People's View. I'm your host, Carl Seidel. The People's View is sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee, and you can find out more about the activities of the committee by going to its website, nashuagop.org. We meet on the second Thursday of the month at the Crown Plaza Hotel Auditorium, and we'd like to see you there.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
And today we have Representative Pam Tucker. Pam, you're co-chair of the HRA as well as being a representative. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that part of your job?
Sure, and thanks for having me. It's always good to be here and chit-chat with you.
Very good.
I'm a representative. It's my third term. I'm out of the Seacoast, Portsmouth area, but it's Greenland, Newington that I cover. And what we're doing now, because the Republicans aren't controlling the House, is I'm with the House Republican Alliance, nicknamed as the HRA. And we're basically a policy group. We take positions on most of the bills up at the House, not all, based upon what the Constitution says. Our bill's constitutional. And to make it a little bit political, it's the Republican platform. We are Republicans after all. And what we do is we position it, either we recommend or not recommend the bill, or whatever the blurb states, you know, ITL or OTP. And from that, we create what is called a scorecard. And the scorecard is online at nhhra.org. And you can see how every single representative in the House votes on bills, and especially if they're a Republican, of how strong did they support the platform and the Constitution, all the way down to people who don't vote at all. And it is probably the longest running measurement tool for how people vote in the House. And it's very widely regarded by many inside and outside of the House, as you well know.
Widely known pink sheets.
Yes, yes, it is. The pink sheet and the scorecard when they come out.
Right. And people do make the references, and you can see if you're a Democrat, they get rated at the bottom of the list generally, but you find out the more moderate people from the Democrat
You
Party.
do, and that's what makes it neat. You know, everyone can say they run as a Republican. And I promote all the Republican principles. I support the Constitution. But you take a look at that scorecard, and I'm not bad-mouthing any Republicans by any stretch of the imaginations, but you can see those people who truly do embody that principle and stick with it throughout. Now, I don't have 100% because there's some issues that I just didn't feel comfortable supporting. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. On some positions where we can see both sides of the issues and the vote is really close, because we do this as a committee as a whole. It's not just three people in a smoke-filled back room saying, okay, how are we going to rate these bills? No, it's wide open. It's very transparent. Any Republican can come to the meeting and present their position on the bill. And we vote, and we take, if it's very controversial, we'll add no recommendation. Make that first, so that way everything's balanced, and we do recommend for or against the bill.
And you give reasons for that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And again, all constitutional or platform-based. And if you look at the recommendations on the pink sheets, it clearly states, it's, you know, Article 10, Part 1 of the Constitution, that type of thing, of why we would oppose it or support it. And some bills, like many of the bills that seem to be coming up now, are, you know, spending bills or growing government bills, which is something I'm not really in for, and so we'll write that in there if it's not necessarily a constitutional position. But some are no recommendation because we can find no constitutional reason for it or no platform issue, and so we just no recommendation on those.
Vote your conscience or whatever you want.
Vote your conscience, yes.
And you've had a couple of real bills that have passed. Some for and some for against. What about the one for the Medicaid expansion? How is that?
The Medicaid expansion, well, that goes way back now, doesn't it? Well, we've been against it since it came up. And if you think about what Medicaid is for, and what the original premise, it is to help those people who are disabled and couldn't take care of themselves. It was for the truly the poor, not for the working poor or people who fall beneath that 138% of poverty level as we're guaranteeing it now. And that's what it's for. So there's what's going to happen if we expand Medicaid is people who are able-bodied and can get out and work, like you and me. I mean, well, maybe not you so much, but me, if I want to, get out there and work. Yet I wouldn't have to, and I would qualify if my income's below a certain level. And so I'm basically getting Medicaid, and other people are paying for it. And it's going to cost our state more money. The federal government says, oh, we're going to help you set it up. And you think about that, and you go, okay, oh, that sounds all granddaddy. And then you ask, well, where's the money coming from?
Well.
And, oh, well, the federal government. Well, then people, I don't know what it is. Are there our heads in the sand or what's going on here? But the federal government has a $17 trillion deficit. Can you put all the zeros on the screen? There is no money there. And as a mom of 3 children, they're not small anymore, it's going to be their burden. And I can't do that to them. And certainly I want everyone to have health care. Believe me, as you know, my daughter 4 years ago got in a nasty accident. We had health care, but it was, the really dirt cheap policy, and we paid through the nose, but we took care of ourselves. No one paid for us. I want everyone to have at least something like that. And we won't even get into Obamacare, but Medicaid expansion, it's not the right way to go about it, because all we're doing is taxing the future of this country, and it's wrong.
Well, the numbers I hear, too, a lot of people in other states that have accepted this expansion find that almost 75, 80% of the people that are taking this new Medicaid had insurance before.
Yes, they did. So
and
what
so
are we
they
doing?
drop in the insurance that they were
Private
paying
insurance.
for. Right.
Yes.
And putting it
into public insurance.
Right.
Is
and
what
it's more or less
happening.
putting everybody on the public dole.
Well, and that's what is happening. It's a slow creep towards the government takes care of everybody from cradle to grave. And we'll get more into this when you start talking about education. And you can go. I won't get into all of it.
You can get into every place.
But think about it. For insurance, it's like up to age 26, and then now you're talking the Medicaid portion of it, and now at 65 you're on Medicare. When do people really take care of themselves, and who's footing the bill? And that's what it boils down to, because if there's no one there to foot the bill but my kids in the future, we're going to be bankrupt.
Well, I can even see what happened in the past here in New Hampshire with the state making a lot of things mandatory in the insurance companies. We wound up with one insurance company now handling everything.
Yes, we did, and we're trying to move in the other direction.
That's right.
In fact,
but the federal government's moving the other way. They're adding things to what you have to have under Obamacare.
They are, and even our state says, oh no, we're going to be all under the federal mandates. I'm in commerce, so we hear all the insurance bill, and we heard one last week that says, hey, let's open it up, get rid of all the mandates. Well, the government people and the insurance company says, oh, no, it's only 5% of the cost, all these mandates. No, you don't need to remove them. Everyone wants to keep their little world just
That's
perfect.
right, yeah. Well, why don't you just say, look, you can offer the thing with the big package, and then you can have to offer something that's the stripped-down model, let's say.
Sure, and that's what we want. So the people who now have no health care in this state because they've lost the coverage under Obamacare, so now they'll take anything. They really will, and they're not going to qualify for Medicaid even if it expands. They're sitting there saying, I need something, but I can't afford this new premium, which obviously we didn't keep the health care and the doctor we wanted with the hospital closings. So from that perspective, we've got to open up our markets. And this is the funniest argument ever, Carl, and you know how it is up there. They're telling us that, well, if you have more competition and more sources, it's going to cost more. It's going to make all the prices rise. I heard it again today in committee,
Really?
and I'm just thinking, so you're telling me competition makes the cost of goods go up? So I guess healthcare has an inverse relationship to that than any other thing in the free
Nobody
market.
challenges them, huh? On a statement like that, that's impossible to believe.
It is, because now you see these little clinics showing up where there's
That's right.
lack of coverage. And so I asked someone that in committee today. I don't want to put anyone out on the fence. It's like, so you just said that, competition is going to increase costs. If there's more supply, it's going to increase. I says, but now you're saying all these little clinics are popping up everywhere. Is that increasing costs? and the response was, well, that isn't what I meant. And sometimes if there's a need, and it just you got the usual bloviation of backpedaling.
Oh boy, oh boy! It's you know what bothers me, and this is one of the reasons that this show exists, is that this isn't picked up by the media when they go there, and they don't show both sides of the issue. They don't challenge some of the statements that are made by witnesses or by government officials.
They don't. We just accept whatever government says, and it's
That's
like,
right.
okay, that's the way it goes, until you come to find out a couple years later that, whoa, it affects you in a not so good way. And by then, it's too late.
Yeah.
And so our jobs as legislators is to make sure that we don't have those unintended consequences.
I agree that, you know, that's, and there are so many dedicated people like you up there that are really, well, they're logical, I guess is the only way I can say it, because the illogic of some of the yeah, well, the illogic of some of the words you hear up there just is unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
That's why I'm glad
but
you're
we
there.
all, but we all do that because and you know very well what we do is you can take any piece of data or find the piece
Oh,
of
yeah.
data that fits your argument.
That's true.
And so, you know, the people for Medicaid expansion, they do it on their side, and then we get the facts on our side that says, you know, the cost this will happen. There are alternatives. We show that, but no, that can't happen. It
And
does
you
get
got,
crazy.
you know, you have a number of states too now that are experimenting, which I think is great. I mean, that's another thing that bothers me about the federal one-size-fits-all type of approach. You need the different approaches, and sometimes one state is in a certain situation where somebody on the West Coast might not have that kind of a situation.
That's,
you know.
that's very true. And when we were looking at the whole Medicaid expansion, there is the plan in Indiana
Yeah.
that seems to be the one that works. And that's what's so great about the United States. You know, you have these 50
That's right.
little science experiments going on, or however you want to look at it. And each one, they can find out, first off, what best fits their needs. But secondly, of what are unintended consequences, what costs, what things happen. And other states can learn from that, be it through NCSL or ALEC, who I belong to. They come and bring the good and the bad of everything, so you can devise legislation or help you devise legislation that might be best for your state if necessary.
Tell us a little bit about ALEC, because they got a little bit of a bad rap in the media recently. You know, they go all these groups that are out there, and they're on the liberal side and the conservative side, but they're all supported by people who have made a lot of money. And you know, it's almost as if that's bad to have support, but they do things that you can't afford to do, at least in our legislature. I mean, we have 400 representatives with a lawyer staff of what, 12 or 14 people,
Yes.
lawyers, to
That's
write
it.
all this legislation.
Yes.
You need some place that will help show you what other states do, or even write some legal approach to it that helps you write a better law here.
Sure, and you also need, they're great organizations if you can come together and discuss legislation. The American Legislative Exchange Council, and I'm not the state chapter, that's Gary Daniels, so you're best to talk to him about all the details. But it's, I don't want to say it's cooperation, it isn't. You do have people who support it, like you said, you need that. But you know, I think NCSL does that, the National Council of State Legislators, as well as CSG, which is another one for state legislators. They also have corporate supporters.
Oh, yeah.
You have to. You get the taxpayers can't fund this. They happen to get a bad or worse rap because they are free market federalists, which is states' rights issues. It is more about the states than it is about the federal government and how we're going to enact federal laws. Like, what was it, the Main Street Fairness Act, which was a national sales tax, or being able to collect sales tax via states.
Oh, yeah.
You know, ALEC wouldn't touch that. That's the wrong way to go.
Right.
You don't do that because it's individual states. Whereas NCSL came out and says, oh yeah, that's kind of fairness for all. Well, for New Hampshire, that would just be a disaster for us. There are so many different types of sales tax on the books. So anyone who's doing internet they'd be so hard pressed.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to be a big company just to be able to handle the data.
Right, to figure out,
Keep
well,
it-
is it tax, isn't it tax?
Yeah.
Do we tax food? Do we tax toasters? I mean, because everyone has different tax structures, and so, you know, the people promoting it might be those people who, ooh, I'll sell you the software, but For the most part, ALEC would support that because that's not really a federalist policy, and they are for low taxes and free enterprise type thing.
And you know, you're free to use these services.
Sure.
And you can't really knock it. Nobody brought up the fact that the Speaker of the House is an officer in another group.
NCSL, when they passed
right.
that Main Street Fairness Act, which is the Sales Tax Act. Yeah, that's interesting that you should say that.
Nobody brought that up. I didn't see that once in the paper.
No, and now the opposition is spreading lies that ALEC's going to make you sign a pledge.
Right.
They're not going to do that. It's all voluntary. We go in there. I was in there fighting myself and Representative Hull out of Dumbarton. We were actually fighting some mandates in ALEC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're ones that I'm sure the people on the left would want. And so you can't say it's this total right-wing organization because it really isn't. You get quite a diverse view of people in there. And there's Democrats who go to it as well as Republicans.
Well, what legislation is right on the table now that you've been discussing? I know you came down just from a couple of meetings this morning, and that must have been interesting. Oh,
we had some good ones that was going to come up, which of course was the universal background check, but that got postponed. So this will all be passed probably by the time this is aired. That is a big issue. The legislation, it was written by a representative, I want to say out of Portsmouth, I can't remember, but it was a bill that was written that says everybody, if you're in any type of transaction, you have to have a background check. And basically, as you know, and this is all about gun rights, and the 2A people, Second Amendment people, came out in force. The emails to kill this legislation, I started counting while I was sitting and listening to other people in committee, shame on me, but the emails, because you can sort them, was over 200 to about 5, and I was only back through Thursday of last week, okay? So I was scrolling and counting. And they're all very valid reasons. The bill is extremely flawed. It was written by a group out of San Francisco. So the first thing you do is you, flags. Do we really want California laws out here? Okay, we're not telling them what to do. They probably should be telling us what to do. That was a big piece of it. The fact you couldn't loan your gun to somebody else, or you'd be considered a felon. There's a piece in it that unless it's a qualified shooting area.
A qualified.
A qualified shooting area. If you're shooting, you have your gun, you're a felon. So that means if your land is it's not qualified or registered or whatever the wording was, you would be a felon for shooting on your own land. There's so many flaws in this bill that we just can't pass it. We do want to protect everybody. I don't know a person in that House that doesn't want to protect all of our citizens. But this bill would do absolutely nothing to stop those mass killings that happened like in Newtown. That guy was a criminal. He killed his mom, for goodness sakes. It's awful. That's just, I can't imagine that. And then what he did after that was just unthinkable. But he did it all illegally. Got the guns illegal, the whole 9 yards. And all of them are like that. This bill wouldn't have done anything, Carl. And so all we're doing is putting more burdens on the law-abiding citizens of the state.
Right.
If you could show me where that would stop that or fix some loophole, I'd be glad to support it, but there isn't. And it's not worth it to impose more regulations on our law-abiding citizens.
No, I agree. Well, regulations as a whole, you have to have reasonable regulations. You can't impede the progress that people are making in business.
Sure.
Any business, whether it's guns or whatever else, but you have to make sure that they're not causing harm to others, that's all.
Without a doubt, and the number one goal, and if you go back in history of why we have governments, is for public safety. We formed tribes in the original to be safe together. Then, we form moats around our houses and build castles up on hills, all for safety purposes. That is the role of government. And keeping us all safe is the right way to do it. But we also must protect the rights of all the law-abiding citizens. We don't want a police state here.
Does this lead us into anything on immigration?
Well, the bill that passed last week.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just enforce our immigration laws as they are rather than write new ones. What do you think?
I think that's right.
Yes. Oh, that was a really bad bill that passed the House, where you allow kids of illegals to get in-state tuition. And again, I don't know anybody who doesn't want to help people. I mean, you say, oh, they're anti-school, they're anti-this. No, we do want to help people. But I'll give you a very personal example, and it affects me very personally. I have an au pair because I work at the State House for nothing. And so I'm gone a lot. So we were talking with her. Well, she wants to stay longer. So she was going to go home, and she's going to get a visa, a student visa,
Right.
and she was going to come back and go to school here. And we would help her because my kids are older. My youngest is 10 now. I don't really need her help, so we could help her get an education here. And so we were going to do that. We're going to sponsor her, as you will. Coming into the country legally, she did everything. You won't believe the amount of paperwork I filled out to be, as her sponsor, to say, what's your income, what are your assets, you will be financially responsible for her, should she take off, blah, blah, blah. Signed away basically my youngest born, because my oldest had run away. I did all of this. She got all her paperwork in order, and the federal government says, sorry, no, your parents don't, they don't have enough money or something to support you. And so she got denied. Now here, she came into the country legally. Yeah. She was, she's working, but she's going to have to leave because her visa is going to be up. And she has to go back. And now these children of by no fault of their own are going to get in-state tuition at the expense. They've already gotten 13 years of free public education.
Right.
We've paid for that.
Yeah.
My nieces who live in Michigan can't come and get in-state tuition here if they wanted to go here. Why do we just create a special class of citizens?
No, I agree with you there. I mean, I could name an example myself with a friend that got into trouble just with this immigration policy. What I can't understand is I think they have to attack both ends of the immigration, the people that are coming in and the people that want to come in legally, who are being held up 5, 10, 15 years before they can get their citizenship. That's ridiculous. I mean, if you get them in legally, they should be able to clear citizenship if they pass the criteria within 3 years, maybe. Yes. 5 years at the most.
I agree.
And then you wouldn't have that problem.
Exactly. And if we let in the people we need, the people with the skills, rather than by country, it should be by skill. If we need 20,000 computer programmers, let's let them come in. Who cares where they're from? I just want those programmers here to make our country better. If you say that they all have to come from Ireland or all from here or a certain amount, you're messing us up. That is not how the free market works.
I agree. I don't know if we can do anything on the state level, but the help that you're sort of inadvertently helping the illegal immigrants who want to come in if you're going to let them take school tuition free.
Yes, yes, and hurting the hardworking taxpayers who might have moved out of state.
And what's the next one that you're handling here, or what's coming up?
Well, there's some good ones. Tomorrow we have Keno.
Oh.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Keno?
All I want is any of these gambling laws to be written correctly. I've been up there looking at least 3 gambling bills over the 4 years I was up there. I didn't like any of them written. The way they were written were all one-sided. They got slightly less one-sided, but they were still one-sided as far as I was concerned.
Who do you think was writing those bills?
But what's happening with that? I didn't realize that was going to be a biggie, because I was waiting for the thing coming from the Senate or something.
Oh, yeah, there's another one coming over for the Senate, which I don't know how we can hear, because we just heard a gambling bill, and it is kind of a revenue bill, so it really should start in the House. But
that's right.
Other than all that procedure, it's funny you said that it's a gambling bill. I don't think of Keno, and I know it is, gambling, because it's like the lottery. It's like you go in,
well, the lottery's been gambling all the time.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So it's coming up. It was 14-4, ought to pass OTP out of the committee, and I can say I'm going to support this one, even though I don't support gambling, for the reasons you cited. They're all written the wrong way. And the reason I can support this is, first off, I just consider it entertainment. But the second reason is that we don't have to create more government to run it. the government is already in place. We just use everyone who has a liquor license and on staff liquor, or whatever it is, to implement it. And they get 8% of the proceed, the gross amount. So they get paid to take on Keno. 2%, only 2% will be to growing government, and that's basically administration. We don't have to set up a whole new department, hire all new people, and go out and get all these inspectors. And that's what we should be doing, because we all complain about how big government is. This is a way that we can increase revenues without growing government. And the other 70% went, and there's 20% went to education trust fund to help lower our property taxes, that whole piece, and then 70%.
That's always been a promise that goes out.
Well, I know, it's really hard because money is so fungible, as we say up there.
Right.
But 70% will go to winnings. So I see it as a great way to increase revenues without increasing the size of government.
Well, speaking of that, we need something for our infrastructure. What's coming up on gas tax or any of the other elements that are going to help our infrastructure?
Well, that's interesting. You should bring that up, because there was a bill in the House, I think it was last week, that talked about using the money, the money from the road tolls, the toll money, only and strictly for the roads. Imagine that.
You mean to get back the 25% that was going elsewhere?
That was going elsewhere. And so the people who were taking that, public safety, they would have to go in front of finance and justify why they need that money. And I think every department should have to do that and tell us, why do you need this X amount of money? That's the right way to run government, because now they have to be accountable. And right now, I don't feel that they're as accountable, because they're hiding behind this. We just automatically get 25%. So there was a bill there. I know there is another gas tax bill coming up. I think you know where I stand on that, but that just, again, that grows government. I know we need to fix our roads and bridges. I'm not going to try and outthink and tell Public Works what to do, but I do see 101 being paved a lot more than some of the bridges being fixed that look like they need to be fixed, but I'm not telling Public Works what to do.
Yeah. Well, I know they try to do the roads because they're more noticeable. The
I know. And you were on Public Works.
Yeah,
you were the vice
chair.
That's what I mean. I'm not going to go there, because you guys know what you're doing over there.
I think that was generally a pretty good committee, because we rarely had any real. The only one I can remember having a lot of discussion was the gas tax, because that's been proposed for 4 years now. Either that or the registration fee. And you know we need money, we need more income, because people are getting, more mileage out of their cars, and getting into electric cars and other things. And but anyway, I was just wondering what you thought might pass, and whether it would.
Well, I'm sure anything that's a new tax will pass the House.
Yeah.
Okay, because of the control that's up there. They love. They haven't seen a tax or regulation they haven't liked yet. I, on the other hand, will be going against it and probably being very vocal with the HRA against any new tax. Because that hurts the working people who are commuting, who don't have the new Priuses, who are still driving a car that gets 20 miles to the gallon, and now they have to pay more. Is that what we're going to do? We are going to tax the backs of the working people of the state in order to fund the government pig, as I call it.
Well, you people did a real good job last year on the budget. It kept them from imposing any new taxes.
You gotta love that O'Brien Morse budget.
How about that? That worked out well. What other things have been happening up there that you'd like to tell the people about?
Well, there's a lot, but most of them are legislative ones in terms of just getting through the calendar, all of the retained bills. A lot of it's political insider stuff that you know that type of stuff that the general public is going like, are you kidding me? You're going to bore me with this? But there are good bills, and what I do recommend, and I tell my constituents this, is keep an eye out, and you can do searches on issues that are important to you, like anything that's not, right, Second Amendment, but guns or firearms. Put that in the title on a browse search, and it'll come up. Healthcare, if that's your concern. Workforce housing, that's normally, it'll do a search based upon words, and you'll find bills that are coming up about these issues that affect people. And if that's the case, take a look at it and read the bill. Contact your legislator. Let them know how you feel about it. I can say this, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but whether we agree or disagree with you, we always do want to hear from you. And people think that we're so far away, but not in New Hampshire.
No.
We are so
They've
close
opened
to
it
the
up
people.
quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 years that I've seen it, that I've really been paying attention to it. You can get a lot of information on the websites now.
Yeah, we did a lot of transparency moves 2 years ago, and we really need to continue to do that. And the next thing we need to do is do some oversight. If you remember 2 years ago, we did the oversight on the Liquor Commission because it was running rampant.
Right.
And then the LGC with all of the issues. We had another committee to look at that. We haven't really had any committees like that to look at it. We've had one to try and expand Medicaid, but we knew what that was going to be even before they had the committee. But we need to take a look at some of these government organizations. Some people call it the fourth branch of government.
Yeah.
And it really is, because they kind of create their own rules. I mean, we have JLCAR, as you know, the Joint Legislative
Well, that's one thing that they don't have at the federal government, do they? That's
Well, why not? You've got to have oversight, or you'll write if you can write the rules, you're going to write them in your favor to make your little world that much better and that much easier.
And not consider anybody else's problem.
No, because you don't know where the money's coming from. You don't care who it hurts.
No, I've seen the JLCAR agenda and stuff, and there's a lot of things there that you have to question sometimes, you know.
Well, one thing that we should do with JLCAR is move it. I think any decisions that they make, the policy committee should be involved, rather than just this group of people who really doesn't have the in-depth knowledge.
Yeah.
But put it back to the policy committee, who knows these issues, and let them vote on it to think if these are the right regulations.
That'd be good. But the transparency is helping out, isn't it?
It is. Hey, it's baby steps.
we gotta do it. Well, it's been an interesting 30 minutes with you, and I really appreciate you coming down and spending your time
It's been fun.
on something like this. And I hope you find out another way of helping your au pair.
Well, she's going home. I'm already looking for a new au pair. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
And thank you all for listening in. And don't forget that the Nashua Republican Committee has a meeting the second Thursday of every month at the Crown Plaza. So go to NashuaGOP.org to find out anything that's going to be happening in Nashua that concerns political issues, at least from the Republican side. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you.
And watch.